Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
It's good. Wow, wow.
We got a lot to talk about today, but first of all, Mike is with us. Look at it, it's Mike.
Hi, guys.
Mike Gonzalez is on with us on Overtime all the time. You see Mike's name pop up. He's a member of the Moody Radio family.
He brought a lot of treats.
I mean, he's not on because he made Christmas cookies for us, but it didn't hurt.
Thank
Thank you,
I
Mike.
don't know how to bribe these guys.
This is Italian chocolate, right?
Italian chocolate.
So good.
Yeah,
Eating.
that's super good. Thanks a lot. You guys could have one. Go ahead, take one. They're really good. But okay, so Mike, you chose a spicy day to stop by.
Oh, so good.
My phone died last night, so I
You
had
don't even know
no
what we're
phone.
talking
So
about?
no.
Uh-oh.
Well, just on the way here, I heard that you preempted it.
Oh, right, okay. Now, here's what I'll say. I had one person make a comment like they thought, why would we even talk about something like this? Here's what I'm going to tell you. We got so many text messages and calls
Lots.
from people who
All
are
the-
directly confronting this issue in their lives right now. Right?
And it's not shocking, but it's surprising sometimes because a lot of times we talk about it like it's out there.
Mhm.
Like these are the Christian people and like that's the world and it's happening out there. It's right in our family.
Or in our workplace. We've heard from a lot of
Yeah.
public high school teachers who have been confronted with this. And what is it? It's transgenderism. But specifically, this all started from the fact that Merriam-Webster, the dictionary, came up with their word of the year. And they didn't choose it for any sort of political agenda. They chose it because there was a 300% increase in searches for this word. In fact, it was, quote, so significant and sustained that it stood apart from other popular entries. So
Yeah.
what is it? It's the non-binary pronoun they, as in they being non-gender specific.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all that, and then I was like, oh my gosh, no, you said this. You're like, remember that J.D. Greer article?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been sitting on this article, but he's handsome, Pastor J.D. Greer. There he is right there.
Oh, he is.
And he's president of Southern Baptist Convention. He's got this podcast called Ask Me Anything,
This is good.
where in the podcast, get this, the podcast is called Ask Me Anything.
Yeah.
You can ask him anything.
Oh, nice.
See why they did that?
And this one was spicy.
Yeah, somebody wrote to him and said, when talking with a transgender person, which pronoun should you use? Now, this is what the high school teacher who wrote to us is confronted with. Two students,
There
That-
were a couple of teachers that confronted
a couple
it.
of teachers.
Yeah, but that one was powerful.
So, as in, for example, a student is biologically male but is transgender, wants to be referred to not just by a female name, but by female pronouns in the classroom.
Mhm.
And they had to make a decision on this. People wrote in, one woman said her sister is now
Yeah.
going by male pronouns and a male name.
One woman said her little niece.
Her little niece, yes.
Yeah.
So, and this is all Moody Radio family members. So there's various perspectives on this. When it comes to that question, writer Rod Dreher, who wrote the Benedict option, we talked about that a number of years ago. Great thought-provoking book. I've heard him speak before. He loves Jesus. He says that words mean something substantively. The use of language creates social realities. He said, read your Orwell. What we say and how we say it frames the way we perceive and interpret the world. People understand this, and they insist on preferred pronoun usage. By doing so, they're creating facts on the ground. Like, this is a fundamental truth issue
Yeah.
that you cannot capitulate on words. Words aren't meaningless, they are meaning-filled, meaningful. J.D. Greer, on the other hand, he said, look, I'd be clear about truth. I would be clear about truth. But he said, if a transgender person came into our church, came into my life, I think my disposition would be to refer to them by their preferred pronoun when we talk about gender. I will be clear with him on truth. The question is that the battlefront that you want to choose? So he calls it pronoun hospitality. And he says that's actually consistent in the Christian life. You see it in other areas. For example, when missionaries go into tribes where there's polygamy, what do they do when the chief has 10 wives? Do they take the first one and call her a wife, and the rest of them they refuse to refer to as the chief's wife?
Well, that's not the way to win over people.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
And then he says another example would be somebody who's unlawfully divorced in our culture. Jesus says that they never really relinquished their marriage, and that he is actually married to this other woman, even though he divorced her. Should you insist on calling the former woman his wife and the current woman adulteress?
We
'Cause it's truth.
But we never make an issue of it. I've
No.
never been in a discussion where that comes up.
And so he says, in those situations, since we choose more hospitable language,
Yeah.
why not do that with pronouns? So what do you say? What would you say if someone asked you, when talking to a transgender person, which pronoun would you use? Or perhaps from your experience, how have you decided what to do? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and you don't have to answer first, Mike. You didn't come here on which favorite Christmas cookie today, although you brought some good ones. Any thoughts for us initially on this, Mike?
It's a hard call. With when women get divorced, they want to be called Ms.
Yeah.
And that's very passionate to some women.
Like it means a lot to them.
It means a lot to them. So, and people call them what they want to be called. So I would say, as a witness, pick your battles, just like teens. When they start growing their hair long and things like that, is that worth the argument? Is that worth maybe destroying some of the relationship over? You have to pick your battles.
Yeah, and one of our callers talked about for their sister, who's transgendered now as a man.
Yeah.
Her sister says pronouns, it's a game changer. Like if you use the wrong pronoun, the gloves are off.
And
She's
she even
personally
said,
offended.
was that the same person that said it makes it hard to invite the person over for like dinner?
Uh-huh.
Because if you mess up, it turns into a big issue, a big blow up, and then you kind of like regret. That's what she says she struggles with.
Again, if you're just jumping in, Mike is with us. Usually type in comments, stop by the station. We love it. He made us cookies. It's not the only reason he's in here, but it's one of them. You bring us cookies, maybe you'll get on overtime.
Good morning, Myrna and Adrian. Callie's like, man, making us think this morning. Hi, Taisha Knight. Good morning. So what do you guys think? How do you handle pronouns in your circle or at your job?
What are you
it
gonna
is
do?
a very sensitive topic.
A
Yeah.
transgender person wants to be called by the wrong biological pronoun, but their personal preferred pronoun.
I love
I mean,
what he said about hospitality and loving people and making them feel comfortable wherever you at. Jennifer says, I used to say I would refuse to call individuals by their preferred pronouns, but our pastor addressed this issue with leadership, and I began to understand that my dying on that hill would negatively impact my witness.
And that is J.D. Greer's point in this. That's Mike's point in this. It's like someone's salvation doesn't hinge upon pronouns. Although it doesn't reflect the truth of their gender, Christ is what saves us. And if somebody is going to get closer to Jesus, you have more opportunity to build a relationship to share Jesus by just calling them a different pronoun.
Yeah.
It's almost like, just do that.
Yeah.
Well,
And not
parallel
worry
that
about
to someone who is in some habitual sin. Affair and having an affair
Mhm.
or living with someone. You don't attack them. You gently go to them. At some point, explain what you believe is right. And in this case, if you call them by their preferred pronoun, you might have an opportunity to ask them questions. What brought you to the point of deciding this, or get into a conversation with them, and eventually get to what do you believe in God and everything. Understand that and become a witness that way.
I like that. Did you hear that? So it's like why get personally offended by this? Why not just go,
Well, it's against our nature.
Right, because
But-
we take offense at everything.
But
It's our-
about everything in Christianity is against our nature.
Right, exactly.
So just pile that on the top.
Yeah, and so if someone says, I'd actually want you to call, I know you knew me as Tom, but now I'm Jenny, I'd like you to refer to me as he, or as she now, you're saying just go, can you tell me about that? Tell me
Yeah.
about what's happened in your life this year.
It's not what they're expecting.
No.
They're expecting an attack.
Yeah.
Interesting idea, Mike. That hadn't come up yet.
Someone texted and said, for the after show on Facebook, as an administrator in public school, we must be kind, gracious, open, and accepting of all. I have some transgender parents and students I deal with, as well as 2 mommies and 2 dad families. When I'm unclear in any situation, I ask how they would like to be addressed.
Yeah, and you know what would happen if that public school administrator who loves Jesus would refuse to use those pronouns?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're
Yeah.
fired.
Yeah.
Now, we need followers of Jesus as school administrators.
Yeah, we do.
We need them as plumbers, as electricians, as politicians. We need all those things. And if we start capitulating on these issues, we will lose the positions.
Amanda says, good morning, Amanda. She says, sadly, I work in the financial industry and I find that customers come in purposely bringing it up to see how I will respond. And I'm always so afraid I'm going to have an HR issue because I do feel like it's intentional.
Well, what do you do with that? So, why does the person make it a thing?
Because they expect, like Mike said, an attack. So if you don't make it, if it's not an issue for you, then I think it brings down the guard for them.
Well, parallel that to how many of us has said things so that we not necessarily believe it or really are passionate about it, but we want to see how people react
Yeah.
to it.
I never do that.
Yeah.
You just did.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then, you know, there are people who just like to cause fights. And I think she may have encountered that. I mean, I think you have encountered that. But I think we also sometimes underestimate how big of a deal it is for someone who's transgender.
Yeah.
Like,
But
we don't
wouldn't
want
that
to
be-
die on that hill, but they do.
Wouldn't it be cool though to surprise them and to just be like, okay, cool. Like those especially would be the people that would be like, man, why do you act differently? Especially with the rep that Christians are getting, the reputation. Reem is saying at work you have no choice but to use the preferred. It's an HR issue. As a Christian, I think it can be wise to politely honor it because of the opportunity to share the gospel. Usually I'm against this line of thought, but triggering a person with serious mental health and emotional issues will not get them to Jesus.
Thank you. And see, that's where a lot of Christians agree, where we know, as J.D. Greer said, there's two genders, male and female. It's biological, down to DNA. God created it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to understand that someone who's struggling with this is dealing with a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Now, they don't like us saying that. But for many years, transgenderism was in the DSM-4. It was
Yeah.
considered a psychological disorder.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. That's what Reem is saying.
Yeah.
And wouldn't he be right? It's like, so why would we take someone who's in deep personal, intellectual, emotional pain
And trigger them.
and poke at them?
Yeah.
And enhance it, yeah. Yeah.
Amanda says she's following up on the financial industry. I have a customer that has a 14-year-old child that they are encouraging to have a sex change, and I called her by her legal name because that is what is on her profile, and they were quick to correct me. This has actually occurred twice. Mark says, for the most part, my nature is to be non-confrontational. So with the very limited experience I've had in these social situations, I carefully construct my language to be generic as possible. Phrases or greetings that can be applied to all people across the board.
And I know where you're coming from, Mike, and this is almost the third option that people have brought up, or Mark, I should say. People say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do either. I'm going to come up with a way to not use gender-specific pronouns. But that is
They'll know it.
That is grammatical gymnastics. You ever actually try to do this?
Especially because we had a text in that context saying, like they try not to get too close. They call them what they can, and then kind of try to stay away. And I talked about, I'm reading through Luke, and in Luke
Oh, I'm glad.
15, which I read yesterday, it blew me away. So if you're not reading through Luke for December, just read that chapter, and it's amazing. And Jesus goes through several parables, all answering one question. The Pharisees, when they see that he's hanging with tax collectors and sinners, they complain. The Pharisees and scribes complain and say, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. If you're welcoming people, and that means you're hospitable, making them feel comfortable, and you're eating with them, which implies intimacy, you can't dance the stuff you're talking about. Like if you really have a heart for the lost and you're really walking with them, how distant can you be where you can play those gymnastics? You're going to get to that point. And when he says welcome, part of me feel like, I guess I'm asking you this, what do you think his response to be? If in the group of, look, he's hanging with sinners,
He's welcoming them and he's hanging.
welcoming them. Is a transgender, is a gender dysphoria person. What would Jesus say?
Well, see, and I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And I wish we had more information.
Yeah.
But what I picture in my head is if he's being accused of being welcoming to them, they obviously enjoy being around him.
Yeah.
And he's obviously spending time with them. And he's treating them in a way that clearly looks like welcoming. So it can't be all right, I'm going to eat with you, but let's just go around the table first. I'm going to tell you all how you're wrong, okay? You're a tax collector. Wrong.
Yeah.
Stop it. And I don't picture him like,
Right.
or if somebody does something or talks about something that's rough on the edges because they're an outcast in society, do you picture him going, objection! How dare you, in the presence of the Messiah, say
That's not welcoming. Why would the scribes complain? You see what I'm saying? Why would they complain? If he was doing that, they
who
would
would hang
probably
out
be
with
like,
him?
yeah, it's about time you tell them.
Who would hang out with him
Right.
if he did that?
Right.
Now,
So-
I don't think he was wrong about truth. I think he was clear about
He never
truth.
backed down.
Never.
He never backed down. With the woman
Never.
at the well, he was very matter of fact to her about truth. But he was also very welcoming and kind to her
Yeah.
when she was essentially an outcast in society. He was
Yeah.
able to walk that line of welcome and truth
Yeah.
in a way that was palatable.
Well, I'm in the business world, and I have not come into that situation.
I haven't either, honestly.
However, I know just through, because I'm old, wisdom. Don't expect to change them overnight. You know, missionaries go into the field to spread the gospel. But I've heard missionaries go for years in Africa, in some of those tribes, that they don't even get into the Bible. They are creating relationships between themselves, you know, between them and the natives until, 10 years down the line before they even get into the Bible.
Yeah.
So
When
what
they
are
start in
doing
the
with
Old
offenses?
Testament and come forward, they don't jump right into Jesus.
Yeah.
So then what do they do with those clearly sinful things that drive them crazy?
They have to. How did Jesus?
You suck it up.
You have
I guess,
to.
huh?
You have to tolerate them, because everyone is sinful. You have to consider yourself.
Taisha says, working in healthcare, we're faced with this pretty frequently. I once used the child's birth gender, and the parent made it very clear that I was to use they when referring to her child. Isn't that crazy? Because you say most of us haven't confronted this, but like in this industry, wow. I only use the pronouns for work. Outside of work, I use the person's birth gender. It doesn't mean I love them any less than my other brother and sister. This is just what I feel is right as a follower. When you hear this story, usually we picture California, like those states. This is right here in Cleveland. A baby, and they're telling you don't. Oh, that's crazy.
And this is why we bring this up. I know some people are like, what are you talking about this for? Because real people in the Moody Radio family confront this on a daily basis. She said pretty frequently she's confronted with this.
Adrian says, Janelle, you make me feel like we're reading through Luke together. The chapter a day always relates to something each day, and you bringing it into the conversation makes it feel like we're reading it together. So encouraging.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's super
We're going to have to
That's
keep
nice.
doing this throughout the week, Janelle. Where
Oh, yeah.
No pressure. You got to keep reading.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gabriel says, Janelle, I have a daughter that I have been dealing with transgender. I told her I don't care what she wants to be. I still called her my daughter.
And see,
That's hard.
if
though.
we
It's so-
could, Gabriel, I'd love to sit down and talk with you more about
Yeah.
this. Because there's so much more than us just saying abstractly
Yes.
and hypothetically. And and it's much more real to have Gabriel talk about it. But I'd ask questions of you, Gabriel, like, what happened when you said that? How did they respond? Like, because I'd imagine each situation's different,
Yeah.
depending on the relationship between the parent and child and who the child is and how old they are. Perhaps there are families where there is a way to nuance this, and
But that also makes me feel how easy it is for us to say, well, we're supposed to love them and you want to win them over. But thinking of Gabriel, it's another thing to be living it. Well, I have 4 boys, and then I have my girl. So that girl was a huge deal. If I was going through that, like Raina's my little girl. So I want to intellectually say, I'll accept you no matter who you are. But the time it would take you to kind of accept that, it's just hard to look at Gabriel and be like, what? You got to call her what she wants.
But don't we tell our children, no matter what decisions you make in your life, no matter what trouble you get into, you need to feel free to come to me and
Yeah.
talk to me.
That's what good parents do.
So live it instead of, and I'm not in that situation, that particular one. I've got some communication issues.
Yeah.
But not that particular one. But
Yeah.
you know, just as a side comment, when you look at divorced or single parents, or you know, you are kind of giving that same impression to anyone who's beyond the normal, and we need to befriend them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but back to the issue of the day.
And in
That's good, Mike.
in terms of keeping other people in mind, it's hard. I don't care where you are. The last thing Gabriel needs from a follower of Christ is judgment. So it's bringing up we're talking about like his daughter, people in his daughter's situation. But then the love that people who are walking through needs and support,
Yeah.
and the time it takes you to even like get to the point where you're accepting or loving.
Well,
yeah.
And no, I'm glad that Gabriel brought that up, because this article from Christian Post, which Kelly has already put up there for us in a separate Facebook post, you can find it. Where I point up? Is that what I would do? Up there? It actually points to the fact that J.D. Greer indicates that Christians can disagree on this. There isn't a specific prohibition or admonition on this. So people can disagree on how to handle this. You got to seek the Lord and
Yeah.
do what's best for you and your family.
A text came in earlier that said, we're just worried too much about how people feel. What are your responses to that? Because as Christians, there's truth. And there are situations where we're like, I don't care what you feel about this. This is what the Bible says. Are we a little bit too caught up on offending people or making people feel bad? You know, as we talk about respect people and ask them what they want to be called.
I can only answer that with some caveats, but can some people be so concerned with how people feel that they capitulate on truth? Absolutely.
Yes.
That's a major problem.
I agree with that.
However, if there is a way to speak truth in love, and to lean heavy with love and not compromise on truth. We've had parents call kids who are homosexual, and they love them and welcome them into their family. They don't disown them. And they're very clear with their kids about truth and how they feel. Their kids have no question about it. They don't beat them over the head with it. There are ways to do this where I don't think, as long as you're clear with truth, I don't think you can love too much.
Yeah.
No, on the other end, if you take the role of conviction or the convictor, then you've overstepped your bounds.
Yeah.
You have to speak the truth. Jesus didn't even speak the truth to convict.
Yeah.
That's not his job. That's the Holy Spirit's job.
Yeah.
So let the Holy Spirit do it. You just bring the point, and then let him work.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I wanted to throw in one. I know we're competing for this. One quick thing to throw in: Steve Brown from Key Life.
I love him. Yeah.
That's before our show, a little bit before our show, like 45 minutes. He told this crazy story once. I won't give all the details because I've told it before. But
yeah.
he said without tears,
Oh.
when you're rebuking somebody, it's self-righteousness. So like without love and emotion and care and concern, you're being self-righteous. And so really with this particular issue, no matter what you do, you should be so over the top loving and caring and concerned for someone that they can't help but love you back, no matter what the way you decide to communicate this with you,
Yeah.
what pronoun you use. But if you're like belligerently and defiantly saying, no, I'm not calling you she because you're a he. That's the way it is, because that's what God made. I don't think that's reflective of the attitude we're supposed to convey.
Yeah.
You would be doing it with weeping and saying, I just can't, my conscience convicts me in this, the Lord convicts me.
Yeah.
And you'd be weeping over this.
Angie says, my child is 17 and has identified as a male for 4 years, born a female. The pronoun issue is a big one. We go to counseling, but it seems like the medical community as a whole is too frightened to explore the idea that my child may not be transgender. We have had name legally changed. Gender marker has been changed. I am currently stalling the testosterone therapy until the age of 18 comes around. It's heartbreaking. We cannot have anyone over that will not conform to the pronouns. I feel like I am living on a deserted island. There are no support groups for parents that do not conform and are fighting for their children.
What sticks out to you from Angie's comment?
That she's isolated. That sticks out to me.
And see, That's what belligerent and/or outright refusal to use proper pronouns does. It doesn't just alienate the transgender person, it alienates Angie. You see? She's trying to do the right thing. She's trying to love Jesus. She's trying to stand firm on truth. But if you can't use pronouns that her child prefers, you can't even come over. Because it's going to cause too much of a problem.
Did that stick out to you too? Or
Yes,
was it-
that's
yeah.
exactly what stuck out, is that now Angie is isolated because of pronouns.
Yeah.
That's how big of a deal this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we know that someone is going through that with a child or with a friend, that we need to bear one another's burdens and help
Yes.
that
Oh.
person too. They need support, and not put a distance between us and them.
Reem's making a good point here.
Reem, love this. As Christians, we have truth, yes, but truth is not to be used as a missile. We are to speak the truth in love. Jesus showed major compassion towards sinners, but was hard on those who called themselves brothers, but were just legalistic Pharisees. Jesus has the moratorium on truth, not us, so we must use it the way he says and how he does.
Drop your mic, Reem.
It was awesome.
Take your mic, drop it. Especially if it's yours. If it's
And
mine,
you
you can't.
say Jesus was harder on the people who had the truth, but felt like they were righteous.
Yeah, and
That's
he
harder
drew
on them
hard
than on
lines
sinners.
on people that were drawing hard religious lines,
Yeah.
on rules and expectations.
But he never backed down, and that we've got to. Even if you're in a conversation with someone who is in that situation, don't be afraid to say, well, just so you know, I don't agree with your choice,
Yeah.
but let's talk.
Yeah.
You know, do it in a gentle voice so that it comes across loving. Because if you're not sincere, they will know it.
Yeah.
As we all do with our children. When they tell us something, if they're not telling the truth, we know it.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, thank you guys.
Special thanks to Mike.
Yeah.
Look at this.
So
Normally he's
cool.
hanging with you on that side typing stuff in, but now he's in studio. Thank you for the Christmas cookies. It's not much fun to have you in studio with us instead of
I
just
love
typing.
you guys.
You
They are
guys.
that is such a fantastic crew down here. Everyone is just amazing. You stop in sometime and meet them.
We'd love that. We'd love to meet you. Stop by. We love it. We're easy to find. We're in Brexville. We're not that
Yeah.
far. Unless you're out of state, then we are pretty far. Thank you, Mike. You're the man. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Hasta luego.
Bye-bye.